Your content is not for you. Your content is for your platform and for your audience. If you really want to learn how to serve your audience, you should get to know them. Yep. If you don't know your audience and you're creating random stuff and you're blaming that your video editors can't figure out your stuff, I'm sorry, my friend. You don't actually know your audience.
100%.
Gotta know your audience. The content is not about you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are here talking about editing videos for maximum amount of views. What's going on, Jake? How are you doing today?
Bro, having fun. Living the dream. How are
Same
you?
here, man. We got our pumpkin spice lattes. We're feeling good, man. It's still October, and
I was
fall.
really hoping we wouldn't have to say that it was a PSL.
We've announced to the world that we're basic.
Straight up PSL. You guys can't read. Well, no, you can probably read, but it's blurry. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Zoom in on that one shot right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Pumpkin spice lattes, y'all. We are
PSL.
not ashamed. You know, there was a time in my life where I was ashamed to admit that I'm pretty basic when it comes to my flavors. I was actually accusing you, Jake, of being basic when you told me that you wanted a PSL this morning, but I also
Whoa! You suggested this. This is your fault. I did not suggest this.
You're right.
You brought it up.
I
would
throw you under the bus there.
Okay.
The first time we ever got
get
Starbucks.
yourself a PSL. If you're gonna watch this podcast, be a real man or woman. Drink your damn PSL when you are watching this podcast, or you are not a content creator. You are someone who is fueled by the earth and rocks and water from Fiji, which I don't approve of.
I personally like Fiji water.
Okay, well,
and I was into, Evian for so long, dude.
We'll get to the video editing. I promise.
Yep, but I will say Fiji because it reminds me of Fiji. Okay, here we go.
Stole
guys. It. Wow. All right, so Jake, back onto the topic of editing for max views. All right, ultimately we want to help you get the most views with your content. You personally have edited videos that have gone viral, right? Mm-hmm. That have gotten multiple millions of views. Let's talk about, what are just a rough framework and what are the most important factors to create a video that goes max views? And let's start with short form specifically, and we'll talk about other styles.
Yeah. So basically the virality, what people would call like a virality formula, this is going to sound very basic and we need to probably go deeper on it to really understand it better, is there has to be a really, really strong contrasting hook or polarization or topic that makes someone think more. It's just something, a really strong hook straight out the gate.
Yep.
Get into what is the video going to be about so people know it's coming. Sometimes there's like an open loop. We get into the meat, the story, or the context. And as soon as we get to the solution, we give the solution and then we end it. No fluff. We just get it through. Hook, meat, context, solution.
Yep. Solution. Yeah. Maybe a quick call to action.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe.
But you don't want to ask too much, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Got it. So love that framework. Let's talk about, you can obviously get a piece of content. Let's say you're a video editor, you're leading a video editor team or giving advice to an editor. You could edit that same outline with every single piece of content. Some might go viral and some won't, right? Well, what's the difference? Why will some pieces go and others won't?
It depends on what's been said and what hasn't been said.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people who are reusing hooks, and there is a form of, there's a certain degree of psychology that has to do with the play with it. Like, for example, people like to hear the number one mistake that people make. People don't want to make a mistake. If you want, the biggest difference that I see is it underused? Like, it hasn't been used a lot. It's an original thought or original idea. And does it do the main three key things? Does it strike fear? Does it bring curiosity? Or does it just strictly entertain? If it does one of those three things, you're good to go. That's usually what I notice with most hooks. There are some hooks that get just reused too much and then they stop working. It's more about, can you just zig when people are zagging? When everyone's saying do this one thing, do it a little bit differently than everyone else is doing it. And then people will be like, oh, I haven't seen this before. But history repeats itself. So we always want to see the same things over and over again.
So you want to make sure that opening hook, that is so important. And whether you are, as an editor, maybe you're receiving a piece of content that wasn't actually filmed as short form, right? Mm-hmm. But you are actually selecting from a larger scale video, a longer form. Would you say there is a greater likeliness necessarily for virality if there is a designated filmed piece of short form that the creator actually took time to make as a short form piece, or mining for, searching for content in a longer form video? Does that matter?
I've actually not had a short form video specifically made for social media go viral ever. I've actually only pulled it from other people already creating content.
So from longer form style.
Longer form style, speeches, podcasts, a lot of content will go that way because
That's great, man.
when people are original thinkers,
Yep.
it really changes the game. And here's what I noticed. That actually happened during the season when people were creating tons of short form content specifically for a platform. And about 6 months before it was doing really, really well, I kind of got in early on the stage when people were not creating content for short form, and I just started pulling it from their speeches and podcasts, and that content started going viral.
Yeah.
So it was actually in the opposite season because everyone was creating short form content. I started not creating short form content.
Well, the cool thing too, I think, when somebody is a great expert, a great communicator, a lot of these formulas, and you're talking hook, like that often is applied in the long form situation as well. Because when that speaker, let's say they open up a podcast, in theory, or they open up a long form video or even a speech on an event on stage, they would want to apply the same attention grabbing principles from a communication standpoint, opening up with curiosity, right? Opening up with possibly stating a bold, controversial statement, something to get attention, because that applies, right, universally, whether it's short or long form, right? So that's really interesting that you've had a lot of that success, not with specifically filmed short form, but long form. That's great. So then from the hook, recap real quick what the various things. So you said create curiosity, whether it's an open loop, state something bold or controversial. Any other general ways that you could build, factor into a good hook?
Yeah, there's two things I'm looking for. I'm looking for, before we go into like the video editing side of what we can do from an editing standpoint.
Yep.
Philosophically, I'm looking for a strong one-liner.
Yep.
And energy. So I'm looking for hook and energy. Energy can supplement how good or bad a hook is. So I had a video this morning where a guy, he's like saying, people should be rich. That's not, if you just said people should be rich, that's a boring hook. But when you say it, people should be rich, there's a lot of energy in that. And people are like, whoa,
yeah,
why is this person yelling at me? Like,
Yes.
It's a lot to say. Energy actually has way more to do with the hook than the actual of what's being said.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. So hook is so important from the messaging standpoint. Now tell me about the importance of visual hooks as well, because you can scroll on social media, right, and see talking head after talking head, but certain ones will really leap out at you because there's like maybe a graphic or something that really flashes on screen. What are some ways that you would, like, if you got the perfect message content that would blow up, what are some things you would do from an editing perspective that truly aid and assist that opening hook?
Yeah, so everything that I process through when it comes to the short form side is how do we create this content from an entertaining standpoint? A lot of people are saying nowadays you can't educate unless you're willing to entertain. So the entertainment side of it.
Edutainment. Yeah.
Edutainment. Oh, man. That's a good word. But if I could have it anyway, I would want, like you even brought this up this morning, is having a strong visual cue at the beginning. A lot of people right now are like overusing this. Like right now, the current trend is like to zoom out or like zoom in. Like it's the same thing. And when I'm scrolling, I get super bored, and I'm just I know what you're doing from like a psychological perspective. I'm like, I don't even want to watch this
Especially from
anymore.
like a creative.
Yeah, it's the same thing as being overused again and again. So like for me, I like to see like image pop up on screen, or captions moving a lot or going crazy, or zooming into someone's face. It does depend on the avatar though, depending on who I'm editing for. So for certain people who, if they're editing for kids, I'm going for photos, I'm going for captions and emojis and illustrations to make it like kind of like a 3rd or 4th grade level. For other people, I'm like, hey, let's slow it down and let's just give a really polarizing hook right off the bat and use more zooms and quicker cuts and letting cuts sit and let the music do the work. So it depends on what type of audience I'm working with. But for the video editor, there's a couple of main things. I'll put it this way. The music is probably the most important piece of a video. If your goal is you want people to feel something, that changes everything.
Yeah,
about your
music
edit.
does have the ability to really hack your emotion and influence how you feel. I mean, I know you do music on the side, I do as well, and that's one of the things we love, is it really taps into the emotion. Now, interesting. I'm interested to hear you say that's one of the most important things behind short form content. Keep going on that.
It has to make you feel something. And people think, oh, I have to be sad. I have to be vulnerable. I have to feel something. No. When you see something that pisses you off online, what do? what's your first reaction? Comment. Right? We always want to comment, or we'll like it, or we're like sending it. We're like, this person is an idiot. It's like, well, guess what? Now you've got engagement on the platform. That was a beautiful voice crack. Can we, if you're editing, you should just run that back. That was gorgeous.
I'm going to pitch tune that. Like, run that through auto-tune, dude.
That's great. Anyways, you're getting engagement. This is coffee, dude. This is damn PSL. This damn PSL you brought is drying out my throat, and there's all this freaking caffeine. It's your fault. You're getting extra engagement from making people feel something. Or when somebody's watching a wedding video, for example, if they're crying, they're not watching the content and being like, oh, what a beautiful couple. They're going, oh, I'm thinking about this if it was my wedding.
Yep.
They're always thinking about themselves. And so they're feeling something for themselves. That music in the video has to be like dead on perfect.
Yeah. So I will also add this. If you have, like, music is so important, but this is only if you have, I don't even know exactly how I was going to say what I was just going to say, but you got to make sure everything else you've said prior to this is done accurately and well. Like, you got to start with the right message. You got to have the good visual hooks. Then let's talk about music, because if music is done well, you're not even really going to notice it. You're just going to feel a certain way. But if it can also be done very poorly to pull you out of the piece.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, this doesn't feel right. I'm super distracted. All I'm doing is listening to the clash of this music, the tonality, the emotion of it, versus the messaging that's going on. So it has to be selected properly, right?
Yep.
All right. So music, once that's in place, the opening hook has taken place. There's some visual. Here's another thing is, you talked about throwing in emojis, throwing in a quick cut to B-roll, zooming in, whatever it is. I would also stress the importance of relevance from what the content topic is about. So if the person makes a bold claim about, here's the best way to invest your money in 2023, for example, you'd want to have some type of visual stimulus that perfectly perfectly aligns with what's being talked about. I've even seen another big trend that I've seen recently is a lot of, like, imagine a green screen effect behind the talking head, and like the person opens up with that line, and then there's a bunch of like a green screen of a bunch of cash that flies behind their head, but it doesn't cover their face. It's cut behind their head only, and it goes over the background. There's some cool effects like that where you can throw in a graphic or an emoji or visual stuff that matches perfectly with what's being said.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that we're getting the point across in the first 2 seconds. You only have maybe a second or two to really make someone determine if they're going to stick around or not.
Yep.
And it depends on the type of content you're making. If you're on the go and you're like filming at people's houses and like, or you're filming like on the street or something, just meeting random people, the way that you edit that video is very different than how you're going to edit a video that's like about education and the person sitting.
100%.
But you have to make the person feel something, and by feeling, sometimes they have to feel like they learned something, or they imagine something that happens to them, or something they have to think about, or something that's triggering to them that's an important topic.
Yep.
If you make the audience feel something, you have a really good chance of going viral. And if the video edit does that, you're good.
Yep. And so...
and it has to keep people engaged.
Yeah.
That's important.
So then that's the next topic, is keeping them engaged. So the first 3 seconds, we want to make sure we're capturing attention. And in my opinion, like, and I've even heard it said, like, that's what buys your piece of content the right for the next 10 seconds to be consumed. And if that's still interesting, that's what buys your content the right for the next 20 seconds to be consumed, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like the idea of email, like the subject line buys the right for the body to be read. The opening line buys the right for the rest of the body to be read. Things like that. It's all a sequence. So once that first 3 seconds have passed, you've got someone watching. Sorry, I just tapped the table. What else then do you do? Is it like, or do you just really let the message ride at that point?
Yeah, what I would do is I would have people that, like, a test that I would probably run is, let's say your avatar is 30 to 40-year-old females. Take your video, give it to them, and stare at their eyes. It's going to sound weird, but I love giving my phone to ADHD friends, and I just have them watch my content, and I'm like, and I watch their eyeballs, like, and they're watching it on my phone, so they could access their phone if they wanted to.
Wow.
And I see, like, where do their eyes go? Are they like looking at are they pulling up the comments? Like, when are they pulling up the comments? I have a stopwatch checking. Okay, when did this happen?
When did they lose interest, basically?
When did they lose interest? And then I'm able to create more videos, and I have them watch it, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting them to stay for longer. And then eventually I want to get to the point where it's like they could not look away the entire time. And they were like, whoa. And so what that's called, like, technically speaking, that's called, you want to make sure you're pattern interrupting people all the time. You're giving them, if you are staying on one subject for too long, I don't want to go super linear on this because it's going to confuse too many people, because it's not a one size answer.
Yeah.
It's a very like, you need to know your audience, test with your audience, see what's going to work. And you can check this on Instagram as well. If you go to Instagram and you want to go to one of your posts and you click like let's say you want to click one of the dots in the top corner or whatever on your insights on your reels. I'm going to do this right now with a video. I'm just clicking on the bottom 3 dots. I'm clicking on the insights button. And if I scroll down just a little bit, I can see the watch time total, and I can see the average watch time. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple numbers just so you guys know off the bat. This video is about a guy who is giving away $79 million. This video has 51,000 views. Total watch time is 138 hours and 6 minutes. The average watch time per viewer, though, is only 9 seconds. So, but that's much higher than a video that we put out recently that has, let's find the lowest viewed, 2,300 views. Let's look at the insights on this. The average watch time on this video was 4 seconds. Here's what's crazy. The editing on the video with 4 seconds of watch time is far more engaging from an editing standpoint than the other one is. The topic is more interesting on the other one.
Yep.
Very simply edited. But watch time is everything. So watch how your content makes someone feel. What's the message being purported? And make sure to remove all the fluff that has nothing to do with the video. Make sure like you're saying, on short form, every second matters. Every second matters.
Yep. It's not a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
Really, as an editor or a creative team leading the editing process, they have to be mindful of it and actually invest in listening, actively listening. How can I best tell this story? How can I best communicate this message with visual stimulus, audio, music, sound effects, even the right captions, the right look and feel and color of the captions, all that good stuff. Amazing. Cool. You also mentioned kind of categories. So I'm thinking too, like you could post a bunch of content all in the same structure, but find that a specific type will resonate more with your audience, right? And this is kind of where the importance of data comes in. Mm-hmm. We want to know what categories are working well. What if every one of my videos is posting that same style, the same best practices, but only certain ones are really taking off? Over time, we can analyze that and see, actually when you take more of a, let's say, spiritual leaning on your channel, mm-hmm. your audience most resonates with that. Mm-hmm. How do you identify categorically what's working and kind of steer your content strategy based on that?
I like to go and find other creators that are already in my niche. Their content's going viral. One of my biggest levers that I use in terms of finding content like that I should do is try to see what's already working in my niche. I don't want to really have to invent the wheel too much. Yeah. But I do want to see what I can do better. I love this video I saw recently that's short form. Sometimes short form does educate you and does help you. But there's 2 lines. There's super creative people and they're super successful. And the creatives often get stuck in one or the other. They sacrifice all the creative to become successful, but then they create content that's meaningless, or they create content that's super, super full of talent, but no one's seen it. So the best thing you can do is actually go find other people that are already in your niche, use the hashtags, find the content that's the most viral. By the most viral, I would count that as what has the most comments and the most shares. If you follow comments and shares and read the comments and what people are paying attention to, that will tell you exactly what your piece of content needs to be. So if you want to the takeaway right now, go into the comments of one person's video on Instagram right now. Take a second, search up your hashtag, and give me 10 seconds. Okay, you found the hashtag. Find a video that's really well viewed. Click on that video. Go through the comments and find what people are talking the most about. That's going to be your next short form piece of content. And you're going to edit it similar to how this one was done. And getting back to the illustration before, the creative and the successful, the person who plays the middle game, where you're doing what's working, but you make it more creative than everybody else, you will win every single time. That's where video editing really comes in, is see what's already working, get creative with it, and do your own spin on it. Figure out the topics and the interests that they already have and the style that they kind of like, and then add a creative spin to it to make it your own.
I think that's a really good dichotomy and blend of how you approach content in today, because a lot of creators, they come to the camera, to the filming day, knowing exactly what their expertise is, what they want to talk about, But as a marketing perspective, we also have to really listen into what the competitors are saying, what our audience is aware of being talked about, and what they are asking for. Maybe you can even ask before you really kick off strategy or kick off content is poll your audience or drop stories. Ask them, do you want me to talk about this, that? Survey your audience if you have an email list. You want to listen to the feedback, right? But you also want to like not fully go into that, not fully be led away from your original, what makes you unique, and then kind of play that balance 50-50 almost. Like come to the table with your own ideas, your own thoughts, and then listen to some of the existing stuff and try to innovate on top of that and blend it and adapt and bring your own style.
And make sure that you're creating content actually for people. A lot of people are like, oh, the content's for me. Dude, it's not for you.
Absolutely.
Your content is not for you. Your content is for your platform and for your audience. If you really want to learn how to serve your audience, you should get to know them. Yep. If you don't know your audience and you're creating random stuff and you're blaming that your video editors can't figure out your stuff, I'm sorry, my friend. You don't actually know your audience.
100%.
You got to know your audience. The content is not about you.
You know, some of our own clients, I've seen when some people really take that effort to actually sit down and jump on a 30-minute Zoom call with one of their own clients, do market research to ask them, what are your interests? Tell me about yourself. What are your goals, your aspirations? What are your pains? The things that are problems or barriers in your journey, you know? And that we then kind of, during the onboarding process, we talk through that so that we, as their designated video editing team, can learn who their audience is so we can craft better content. But that step, if you haven't done that, it's so crucial. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting in the dark. You don't really know. You're just being led by what you think, but you're right. You then need to know what your audience thinks so that you can create content around them. And I love that framing your mind even. Like, I'm not speaking to a microphone. I'm not speaking to a computer right now. I'm speaking to a person.
Mm-hmm.
That shifts the game. It takes away fear, really. It takes away anxiety or pressure. It's like, I have to perform this certain way. Yep. It's no, like I'm literally having a conversation with you right now, and I'm helping you. I'm listening to you. I'm offering my advice. Mm-hmm. To me, I think that takes the pressure off.
Yeah. Cool. And for example, here, like we just want to hang out with people who are trying to get into the content space.
Yeah.
Like they're not super like deep into the content web. If you've been creating content for 20 years and you're getting 30, 50,000 views a video, maybe it's 400,000, 500,000, you're probably not listening to this podcast. You're probably the person who's stuck at maybe a couple hundred views, or you're trying to grow, or you've never done content before. This is where we want to be. We want to be hanging out with you guys. Like that's because we've been in that situation before, and man, it's taken sometimes 4 years to be able to figure out how to make good content.
Yeah. And even to piggyback on that too, talking about 200 to 300 views per video, while we do want to, and our efforts are aligned to get more and more views over time, that's okay if you're not getting thousands of views per video, especially if you're starting out, and especially if you are in a niche that is a little bit smaller, right? We've heard the phrase riches in the niches, and a lot of experts and entrepreneurs are there to serve niches that don't necessarily have massive audiences. And so it's okay if your content really only speaks to a handful of people that it's intended to reach right now in the niche, because those, we've called them vanity metrics, views, hearts, likes, all that. While that's good and we want to see that go up over time, the ultimate measurable of the content that we want to produce is more paying clients, right? So that when you have omnipresent content as a creator out there on your socials, on your podcasts, on your YouTube, even a blog, for example, your website, or let's say you're hitting them every bi-weekly with a email drip, you're going omnipresent, and you want to be so present so that when that person is referred to you from one of your clients, or someone ventures into your ecosystem, maybe from a paid ad or even just from organically, they see, oh my gosh, this gal, their doors are open. They're on for business. I now can look and get to know them and like them and trust them. And I can see this person knows what they're talking about, so that when I'm ready to invest in myself and take action in myself, who am I going to turn to? I'm going to turn to you, because you've been publishing content and I now trust you. I'm going to be 10 times more likely to click on book a discovery call with this person, because I already know them. I don't have to, the barriers are gone.
Yeah.
The objections are already covered from the content. Well, that's awesome, Jake. Any other final tips or or recommendations or things you want to cover around editing best practices?
Start producing some content, y'all. Start producing content. Get it out. Get your chops up. I love going. One of my favorite things to do is just to look at people who like recently got a ton of followers.
Yeah.
Go to their first video and just see how bad they were at first.
Yeah.
They were like nervous on camera.
Yeah.
Their editing was pretty good, and their editing got progressively better over time.
Yep.
The editing got better. The energy of the person also got better though too. They were improving their speaking skills, how they presented, their hooks and stuff. Like their hooks were actually really good, but their energy was really weird. So the more that you produce and the more intentional you are. Oh, I love this. This is a great illustration.
Lean in.
I just started learning cello, right? So I started learning cello. I was listening to a podcast, well, like a YouTube video of like, well, the things I wish I knew going into cello. The biggest thing was actually, it's not about how much you practice, but how intentional you are with how you practice. They talked about you should slow down and be more intentional with how you practice, because you'll learn a song faster if you slow it down. Same thing with content.
Oh, yeah.
You can create a ton of content. I know people who create tons of content, 10 hours worth of content. And there's like 2 clips, and I'm like, the rest of it was boring. It's really boring. I wouldn't watch your content, honestly. There's some people, though, 45 minutes of a podcast, and I'm like, here's 20 clips, and they all go viral. That happens all the time. So be really intentional with how you're creating content and how you're coming across to people. That type of approach will yield a much, much better result.
Love it, man. Cool. Thanks for the chat, man.
100%, man. Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.